What's going on, you guys? Nick here with Nick Strength and Power. I've got a couple of interesting stories for you guys today. The first story that I've got for you guys today, the New York Pro is coming up in 8.5 weeks. It's going to be in May. And one guy that's making his pro debut at the New York Pro is Carlos Thomas Jr. So you guys might remember about a year and a half ago, we were talking about Carlos Thomas Jr. as being one of these amateur guys that was really had a strong shot at turning pro. He really seemed to be one of the freakier amateur guys. Then at Nationals about a year and a half ago, he turned pro, and he took a pretty substantial gap in between then and now to really focus on making some improvements so that when he did make his pro debut, he could really make quite the statement. Now, I actually thought because he was a little bit shorter, he was going to be making his debut in 212, but I just talked to Carlos maybe an hour ago, and he said that he's going to be doing open at the New York Pro, which I think is an interesting decision. I mean, if you watch this video from Nationals last year, actually I think it was 2021 Nationals, you can see that he looks insane. You can see the round, full muscle bellies that he's got. He's got crazy arms, crazy pecs. He's got crazy wheels on him. He's one of these guys that has really just crazy genetics for bodybuilding, and he reminds me a lot of Nick Walker. You guys might remember, it seems like it was forever ago now, but talking about Nick Walker on this channel as an amateur when Nick was still trying to get his pro card, and we're talking about how much potential Nick had. We were talking about, these crazy arms that Nick had, the crazy roundness and size that he had for an amateur. And Carlos, I think he got kind of a similar thing, but a little bit more of a streamlined physique and a little bit more aesthetically pleasing. But I think the main thing that Carlos needs to work on is conditioning. You can see here in the lower back and the glutes, I think he needs to bring a little bit sharper conditioning as a pro. The lower abs in this video from Nationals looks like they could have been sharper. They look a little bit distended in the lower abs, a little bit more definition there, but overall, for an amateur guy, keep in mind, this video you're watching was an amateur bodybuilder at the time. Phenomenal world-class physique. And it's going to be interesting to see how he does. I mean, you see these guys like Hadi Chupin, Derek Lunsford, these shorter guys, William Bonac, making these crazy... Nick Walker, I mean, he's a shorter guy too, but making a huge statement immediately as a pro. And with Carlos taking that substantial amount of time off, I'm curious to see what kind of impact he's going to make on the New York Pro lineup. I really have no idea what that lineup's going to end up being. Sometimes you've got a really solid, crazy New York Pro. Sometimes you've got not as competitive of a New York Pro. I would say last year would be a good example of that, the New York Pro, that Blessing Awodabu won. So could Carlos Thomas Jr. have a shot at winning the New York Pro right out of the gate? And we talk about the similarities that he has with Nick Walker and think about the New York Pro for Nick Walker, what a big win that was for Nick, and the career trajectory that Nick had after that New York Pro win, winning the Arnold, top 5 at the Olympia, then top 3 at the Olympia. That was the win that really kicked off Nick's career. Could we see something similar happen with Carlos Thomas Jr.? I think it's possible. He's certainly got the genetics to do so, but again, the main thing that I'm looking for from Carlos is improvement on that conditioning. I think that's what he really needs to be competitive. I think his back needs a little bit more density too. And we are looking at these more recent updates from Carlos too, like this front double bicep is pretty impressive. That's one of my favorite shots of his. And this is definitely a pro debut that I'm really excited to see. This to me reminds me kind of Nick Walker. In the past couple years in bodybuilding certainly have been years that have been really indicative of a changing of the guard. And you've seen, these guys that hit the IFBB Pro League and immediately have these crazy career trajectories. Michael Krizo, Nick Walker, Andrew Jack. You see Derek Lunsford come from 212 and immediately is runner-up in open bodybuilding. This is certainly a time in bodybuilding where someone like Carlos could come along and immediately become one of the top guys. It would not surprise me at all because bodybuilding is really kind of in the middle of a shift right now. But let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Are you looking forward to the pro debut of Carlos Thomas Jr., and do you think he's going to do some damage right out of the gate? Comment down below. Now, next up in the news, let's talk about Shaun Clarida a little bit. So you guys may have seen he did some posing and some training with Hani Rambod. He also went on Hani Rambod's podcast, The Truth with Hani Rambod, where he talked a little bit about his Arnold Classic placing, his Arnold Classic experience, and his plans going forward as far as men's open bodybuilding or 212. And he really kind of answered the question that he will stay in 212, and he's going to attempt to break Flex Lewis's record of 7 212 Olympia wins. Now, since Shaun has only won 2 titles so far, he would have to win 5 more to tie Flex Lewis, but I do think that staying in 212 is the right decision, and Shaun even says that in the podcast. He says, look, I wasn't even able to win the Arnold. What's the point in staying in open? I'm not going to be a factor at the Olympia. in open. I mean, like I said before, 212 is kind of a division that was tailored for a guy like Shaun Clarida, a guy that is limited in structure, limited in height, and for that reason, he can only be so big and can only be so competitive. So really, that division is made for a guy like Shaun, a conditioning guy with really good shape, really good structure, but just can't be the biggest guy no matter what he tries to do. So I think this is a really good decision for him to stay in 212. I don't know how realistic it's going to be for him to win 5 more 212 titles, well, 6 more to break Flex's record. But I do think he is way better suited for 212 than open. But let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. Do you guys think that Shaun should continue to pursue open, or do you think it's the right call to stay in 212? Because honestly, I feel like that's where he belongs. Now, next up in the news, I want to talk about the Pittsburgh Pro guest posing, because as you guys know, this has been a big topic of conversation. Big Ramy, notoriously, I guess you could say, was supposed to guest pose at this last time around, did not show up, and Derek Lunsford filled in for him, and that was a big topic of conversation leading into the Olympia last year. And obviously, because Big Ramy didn't show up when he said he was going to, a lot of people have invented or are believing in this conspiracy theory that maybe Big Ramy was punished at the Olympia for blowing off this guest posing, because it's Jim Mannion's show. This is historically the biggest guest posing of each year in bodybuilding. This is like, it's a really big deal. And to commit to this and not show up is a really big deal. So the interesting thing about this year is on their Instagram, the Pittsburgh Pro confirmed that Big Ramy is scheduled again to guest pose at this year's Pittsburgh Pro in 2023. So this, I think, is something we really need to keep an eye on, because if Ramy committed to this a second time around after what was a pretty big deal, I mean, last time it was a big deal that he didn't show up to this. He committed to it and did a no-call, no-show. He didn't even tell anybody that he wasn't coming when he didn't come last time. So this is something to pay attention to, because I think this is something Ramy really, really needs to show up to. Because I'm not a huge believer in this conspiracy theory about Ramy not showing up last year, so he was punished. But if he does it 2 times in a row, then I might be inclined to believe that maybe the powers that be might not be Ramy's biggest fan. I'm not saying that it would really impact judging that much to where they would, punish him. But I think if he did miss this show twice, this guest posing twice, it would really put him out of the good graces of the powers that be. Whether or not that's how things should be, I mean, that's a whole nother conversation. But this guest posing is scheduled to be an impressive one. Not only Big Ramy, even though I think that's one of the more noteworthy names on that banner, you've got Samson Dauda confirmed, your Arnold Classic champion, 2023. Also, you've got the Brazilian Rafael Brandao, who was a top 10 Olympian this year, placing 10th. You've also got Derek Lunsford, Nick Walker, Hunter Labrada, and Shaun Clarida slated to guest pose. And they've got Chris Bumstead on the poster, but they specify that Chris will not be guest posing here. Now, I really wish they were able to get Hadi Choop in here, because we're going to get to see, essentially, basically the entire first call-out from the Olympia. I mean, this is going to be really impressive with Derek Lunsford in the mix. You saw some of the clips I posted of Derek during Arnold Classic weekend, what kind of physique he had there. I mean, what kind of shape he was in still on the Arnold Classic weekend. But it's going to be interesting to see him next to Nick Walker, next to Samson Dauda, next to Rafael Brandao, Big Ramy, after all these months following the Olympia, to see, how is his conditioning still holding up? Has he put on some size? Has he made some improvements? How's he going to look in this guest posing against guys that just competed like Samson, Nick, and Ramy? It's going to be interesting to see. I saw some people making the argument that the version of Nick that we saw in Columbus would have beaten the version of Derek that we saw at the Olympia. So I thought that was an interesting point to make, and I think it's going to be interesting to see those two specifically on stage at the Pittsburgh Pro. But again, I think a big focus for me when I'm looking at this is, will Ramy show up or won't he show up? I think that's going to be very important, and I really think he needs to. If he doesn't, no bueno. But I have a really tough time believing that Ramy would commit to this thing twice and blow it off twice. I don't think Ramy is that dumb. But let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. Do you think Ramy will show up? And what do you think of this this lineup here for the Pittsburgh Pro guest posing? And let me know what you guys think about the upcoming shows, the New York Pro, the Cali Pro, the Arnold Classic South America. How do you think those lineups are going to be? Let me know in the comments below. Like and subscribe for more videos like this one. And as always, I love you guys. Appreciate you guys. Nick Strength and Power signing out. All right, guys, don't forget to click that like button and subscribe to this channel if you enjoy the content. Also, check out my Instagram at Nick Strength Power. My Facebook page, which is simply Nick Strength and Power. My secondary YouTube channel, Nick Strength and Vlogs, for vlogs and bonus content that you will not see on this channel. And consider subscribing to my third YouTube channel, Nick Strength and Pokemon, which is all things Pokemon and trading card games, completely unrelated to this channel. So if you're into that, give that one a look. And all links to merchandise and social media will be in the description box below. If you guys want a Nick Strength and Power t-shirt, that will be in the Shopify link below. Have a great day.